All right, we're broadcasting. Thanks everybody for tuning in again. This is Tom for the Ketogenic Fasting Project, and I've got Bart K from the other side of the planet. He's down there in New Zealand. He's just starting winter, and we're just starting summer here, and we decided we'd talk about cardiovascular disease or coronary artery disease. I had a coronary artery calcium scan done not that long ago, and I thought who better to discuss it with than Bart K.
Hi, Tom. Thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure to speak with you, young man. And may I say you're looking healthier and younger every time I talk to you.
That's funny because I think I'm a little older than you are.
Probably just slightly, actually, Tom. I think.
Yeah, I think I'm about 2 years older than you are. So
I think from reading your CAC score PDF printout there, it said you were 48, didn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, all right. I'm 47.
Oh, okay. So we're pretty close.
Pretty close, yeah.
Yeah, so I sent you a copy of my CAC report there. So
you sure
bit
did.
Of science, yeah. So what was your take on it when you read it?
Okay, well, it's an interesting read. Obviously, to read through what you get is basically a 1 or 2 page PDF printout. It measures the level of calcification in the endothelium of the various coronary arteries. And for those that don't know, they are the various different arteries that subserve the heart itself with its own blood flow. And it gives you a number for each of the different major sort of coronary arterial routes that exist. And then it gives you an overall number, which ranges from 0, which says absolutely no sign of any calcification at all there, right through to, pretty much unlimited, but the top of the scale that they show is like 2,000 or something ridiculous like that. And then what they have is a bunch of sort of normative values, if you like, where they say, okay, if your score is between here and here, then your probability of cardiovascular problems in the next X amount of time is, whatever. Associative stuff, sure, but it kind of just gives people an idea of the context and meaning, I guess, of what their results say. To give people an idea, a CAC score over 400 is generally considered to be where someone has a significant amount of coronary artery occlusion due to atherosclerosis or arteriosclerosis. A score of 400 says this is someone who has clearly got cardiovascular disease. And Thomas is good. Do you mind if I share your results, Tom? Or?
No, go ahead. I've already talked about them.
So. All right. So Tom's score was 8. Okay. So 400 is a problem. 0 is no evidence of any disease at all. Tom scored 8. Okay. And then what it also does is it gives you an idea of where you sit in the population of people of your gender and age group. So 40 to I think 45 to 50-year-old males, I think, was the group that Tom was in. It said that roughly 50% of people in that age group across the population have more coronary artery calcification than Tom has, and 50% of the population also have less. Okay. And the attendant risk that they said that Tom has for cardiovascular events in the next, I forget what the time frame that they specify, is less than 10%. So, I think there's several things that we can take out of that. First of all, assuming that we just take all the associations, all the applied risk ratios as a given, accurate or not, whatever. What we can say is that Tom is pretty average for a male his age in the North American population. Okay, so how long have you been carnivorous on the carnivore diet, Tom?
About 1.5 years.
Okay, about 1.5 years. All right. So what that tells us is that 18 months of eating animals and associated animal fats and animal proteins and very, very few plants, if any at all, has not done any damage to Tom. He's still average. Okay? His risk factor is the same as someone who was not eating carnivore. So that's the first thing by way of, okay, there is an 18-month N=1 naturalistic observation, has 18 months of eating animals and animal fat done this individual, Tom, any harm in terms of his coronary artery calcification score? Answer, no. Okay. Second point, do we know what Tom's CAC score was 18 months ago before he started a carnivore diet?
Nope.
No, we don't. Okay, so in terms of has this changed Tom as an individual, we don't know. We suspect it probably has. We suspect there's been some healing. We suspect his coronary artery calcification score, had we taken it 18 months ago, was probably worse because of what we know about the carnivorous diet. Okay, so Tom was probably above average risk 18 months ago, and now he's back to average, would be my guess. All right. What I would really love to see would be a repeat of this CAC test for Tom in another 18 months' time from now. And I'm picking his CAC score in an 18 months from now will probably be close to 0.
Yeah, I plan on getting it done about a year after the last one was done. It's, here in Southern California is probably one of the more expensive places in the U.S. to get it done, and it's $150.
Right.
So considering the value and the information, $150 is a drop in the bucket. I mean, who isn't walking around wondering if they're going to have a heart attack,
Well, I mean, I think most of us who are sensible carnivores are not worried about that on a day-by-day, minute-by-minute basis.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I certainly don't lose sleep at night wondering whether my heart is going to crap out on me tomorrow or anything like that. Yeah, but it's interesting. It's a good test for people to undertake. As you say, for $150, it's probably a pretty cheap way of identifying. The thing with this whole coronary heart disease risk that we're finding is that all the sort of standard proxy measures of risk are all based on these associative studies. They're all based on this is correlated with that, this is coincident with that. They're all around completely inappropriate, unscientifically based proxy measures like various lipoproteins like HDL and LDL and total cholesterol, which we know, none of those have any predictive value on heart disease at all in the real world. Once we take out all the publication bias and all the inappropriate statistical smoke and mirrors and skullduggery and all the sort of stuff that goes on. Triglycerides, same deal. Triglycerides are not a good predictor of heart disease. Looking at what is deemed to be healthy heart exercise levels and healthy heart lifestyles in terms of nutrition, based on the current gold standard accepted wisdom in the area. These are all things that will lead to these kind of proxy scores of heart disease risk or whatever that are actually just based on nothing more than this association, guesswork, skullduggery, smoke and mirrors, misdirection, lies, bullshit, and jelly beans, basically. And the CAC score is different. And the reason it's different is because it is an actual physiological measure of the disease process itself. Okay, so we can guess at what your disease progression is likely to be based on a bunch of guesswork, which is false anyway. Or you can subject yourself to a little bit of radiation, not much more than you're going to get from a standard X-ray,
right,
on one day, and you can actually get the answer. Here is a physical measure of the disease process, the calcification, the hardening of plaques existing in the coronary arteries. You can get it done just for your heart. You can also get CAC scores done for your entire body if you want to go that far, but that's going to be a lot more expensive.
Yeah, I actually had a full body scan done at the same time. So
okay, cool. And did you get some numbers for that, or
they didn't detect anything else? So there was, everything else was 0 scores. But of course, they looked at not just other major arteries, but also all kinds of your organs in your brain and everything. So I'll send you that report. It's a fun read.
Yeah, no, cool. That'd be awesome. I'd love to have a read through that one.
I've got a few birth defects I didn't know about. So.
Yeah, I was, as we know, last time we spoke, I've got 1 or 2 of those as well. the old deformed feet and stuff. One of my cheeky nieces refers to them as my fish feet. And of course, she's Australian, and so she takes the puss out of my New Zealand accent by calling them fish feet. Yeah, good fun.
I would have gone straight for the platypus, but
yeah, platypus. God, that's an Australian species, of course. But anyway, there you go. So I guess that's what's so attractive for me, anyway, and for people like Ivor will talk about this, and Dave Cummins will talk about this. Let's stop this guesswork that's based on actually false premises in the first instance, and stop giving people this nonsensical, ridiculous, non-predictive information, and let's go to, as a standard procedure, let's do these CAC scans. Let's actually measure the disease process that we're talking about. We don't have to predict anymore. We can look at the CAC score and say, there it is in black and white. Thomas's score is at current 8. Okay, in 18 months, as we say, we expect it to be closer to 0. And then we will have an n equals 1 naturalistic observation stretching over 36 months that tells us that at least over the last 18, there has been a regression, an improvement in Tom's calcification as a function of getting rid of those poisonous plant foods that were causing the problem in the first place. Looking forward to that. That'll be good.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't know what my arteries look like 18 months ago. Well, a year before I started carnivore, I was on a ketogenic diet. I was eating a lot of fat. And what we do know is that, on the body scan, they document a lot of the arthritis, especially in the spine, and some reduced height in some of the discs and stuff like that. And that used to cause me a lot of pain. And that is all gone now. And that's all due to eating a diet rich in saturated fat and animal protein. So
awesome. That's great news. Hey, did you happen to just hear that door rattling just there a little bit just now?
Did.
Yeah, okay. We've just had a minor earthquake here, basically.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we've actually been having quite a few of them over the last week or so, and there's this big program of education going on over here in New Zealand at the moment, especially around where I live here in this particular region. Basically, we are sitting directly pretty much here on a major fault line called the Alpine Fault Line.
Really?
Which runs basically under my feet here in Greymouth in New Zealand, very close to. And they've been kind of backtracking and retro-dicting earthquakes and things on the basis of the quite predictable, quite rhythmic, geological evidence of earthquakes here, going back, thousands of years. And as it turns out, we are due any day, any tick of the clock for a magnitude 8 move on that fault line. So every time we get a minor quake, I'm like, okay, is this going to be the one? No, just a minor one. But it's also good because every time we get a minor one, it's like, okay, that releases some of that pressure and reduces the risk overall. So again, I guess it comes back to being an adage for the CAC thing, doesn't it? But anyway, yes, we have the survival kits ready. We have the escape, because we're also living at the coast, so there's a tsunami risk. So we also need to know exactly, what's the plan, get in the vehicle, where are we going to, where do we get some elevation pretty quickly. Luckily, there's some hills right behind the house that we can get to fairly quickly. Survival kit in hand, all this kind of stuff. So anyway, a bit of an aside, I just thought I'd share that with you because it's like, that's
well, we got a lot in common. Earthquakes are a common topic where I live too. So.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah. You're pretty much on a fault line there as well.
Yeah, we have quite a number of them. So yeah, we get we just had a small earthquake a couple days ago. So.
Okay. Yep. So there you go.
Everybody's blaming on fracking. So
they don't know what they're fracking talking about, do they? Did you see what I did there?
No, very clever.
Hilarious. Okay, so what other topics have we got for today, Tom?
Well, have you ever known anybody to reverse blockage in the arteries, undue heart disease? What do you know about that?
Well, I mean, I haven't personally seen it myself yet, and I think that's because both the CAC score is quite a new sort of a technique that people have been using, and I think also the carnivore approach to nutrition is relatively new, at least for our generation. Obviously, we've been doing it for hundreds of thousands of years. It's not new at all, but for the last couple of generations, at least, we've been telling people that they should avoid fat and avoid meat and eat lots of grains and things. And so this is kind of a new approach to health and longevity. We've actually got a bit of gentle rolling happening right now as we speak, as a kind of secondary to that judder we had before.
Very nice.
It's very much like the rock, because you get that one, you get that one, and you get that one. A bit of that, So what we're talking about? We were talking about the newness the newness of the carnivore approach and the newness of CAC scores. Look, I'm aware there are some reports of people who are reversed, and I think you were mentioning one just before we went live, Tom.
Yeah, Ivor Cummins had done an interview with a fellow who'd done it, and the guy's had like 28 CAC scans. And when he found out he had heart disease, he just kind of dove into it. Like that crowd, the guy's another engineer. And so he's like, I got this heart disease. There's got to be some way to undo it. So he just kept experimenting on himself until he figured it out. So it's quite interesting. And, a number of people, Sean Baker, he had the CAC score done. His came back as 0.
Yeah.
So, and of course, he's quite the athlete, He's been eating well, working out a lot for a long time. So, and he's 52, if I'm not mistaken. So he's just a little bit older than us.
Yeah.
So.
Cool. No, that's awesome. I think it's good news that you've taken the step to get that scan done. I think it's good to have the information, and it gives you a baseline to work from, so that in 12 months, 18 months, you repeat the test and see whether there's progression or regression, or whether it's exactly the same. And then that's clear feedback for you individually on what you've been doing. And there's no way to fudge it. There's no way. I mean, the thing can't lie. It's going to tell you,
sure,
exactly what the results are of exactly what it is you've been eating.
Right.
And I think it's a fantastic approach to getting some actual science, some actual results, instead of all this nonsense that is touted as being nutritional science currently.
Yeah, I'd watched that Widowmaker video that Ivor Cummins promotes, that his boss had made, and it's all about the development of the scan and the advantages of the technology, and of course the fact that it's far more affordable than putting somebody on statins.
Yeah,
especially if you're putting people on statins, you don't really know if they have any heart disease.
Exactly. You put people on statins on suspicion of having heart disease based on a lipoprotein result that's estimated, not even actually measured.
Right.
People don't necessarily know that, do they? That when you get an LDL result from a blood test, they haven't even measured the LDL. They are estimating it based on your HDL. And there's a margin of error around that estimation.
Sure.
So anyway, your probably false LDL reading, because it's an estimate, not a measurement, is used to tell the physician that you need to be on a statin, even though the LDL is not the cause of heart disease in the first place. And then they give you a drug, the statin, which will definitely do you harm. No question, no maybe. Statins are a dangerous, contraindicated poison that should not be taken by anybody ever.
Well, they work by impairing liver function. It's like
basically, yeah.
So you can't really interrupt the production of LDL cholesterol without interrupting other liver functions.
Correct. I mean, the enzyme that statins work on is an enzyme which is basically the very first enzyme in the entire metabolic tree, which leads to eventually, among other things, the production of molecular cholesterol, as well as a bunch of other things like testosterone, estrogen, myelin for myelin sheathing for your neurons and in your brain and in your nervous system, vitamin D, vitamin K, 50% by weight of every cell membrane of every cell in your body, a number of immune type cells and functions within those immune cells, bile acid, quite handy stuff really. And statins knock all of that down, which are all very, very bad things. And then on top of that, they actually also knock down a thing called coenzyme Q10, which is sometimes also called ubiquinol. And that is one of the respiratory chain proteins in the mitochondria. So in other words, it poisons your mitochondria directly. In other words, statins work on your mitochondria in exactly the same way that cyanide would. The only difference is statins do it much more slowly and will kill you over several years rather than over several minutes.
Well, and the great thing for the pharmaceutical companies is once they've convinced somebody to pay for these statins for you to take, then they can sell you some CoQ10 because your CoQ10 is gonna get low, and that's dangerous. So.
Yeah, and you know what's so funny about that, Tom, is when you ingest proteins, whether it's meat or whether it's coenzyme Q10 in a tablet, what happens in your stomach to that protein that you've ingested?
Oh, some of it
the acid in the stomach breaks it down to its component amino acids and branch chain amino acids for use to rebuild proteins of whatever kind it needs to rebuild. Very, very little of the coenzyme Q10 that you ingest in that tablet gets through your stomach wall and ends up anywhere near a mitochondria. It just gets broken down and used as a very, very expensive source of amino acids, basically.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize, supplements and stuff like CoQ10 generally aren't all that effective because, like you said, a lot of it gets broken down and it's not really utilized. It's like
hilarious.
Plant nutrients, a lot of them just aren't very bioavailable,
Absolutely.
They get packaged with anti-nutrients. They come in forms that aren't as easily to utilize, and so on and so forth. Same thing when you take a supplement in a pill.
Yep, and then we get videos made by folks like our good friend Paul, the hench herbivore, where he says, "Oh, look at all these nutrients in the plants." Hey, great, yeah, there's a lot of nutrients in the plants, but you can't fucking use any of it.
I was watching your interview, your commentary on his video, and I just watched one he had done last week. And the thing that got me was he was examining another vegan's cooking, right? He was watching what these guys were making in a day and eating it. He was guesstimating all the amounts, and he was calculating out all these RDAs that they were meeting or not meeting. And then 3/4 of the way through it, he goes, "Well, we don't know if these RDAs are any good anyways." And I'm like, Jesus, man, you spent all this time making these videos, guesstimating how much food that they're actually preparing, and then extrapolating all these RDAs, and then you just said the RDA information really isn't reliable. What kind of madman is that,
Well, I think we're seeing what kind of madman we're dealing with there. I hadn't actually watched a lot of his stuff prior to deciding, okay, it's time for me to deal with him, particularly by doing my critique on him. So I just picked his most recent video, which just happened to be the one I was critiquing.
And he did did have a particularly gray-looking pallor in that video. You were.
He looked grey. He looks like in his mid-60s to me. As I said in my critique, he looks very, very unwell.
Yeah.
But appearance aside, and appearance, you know, can tell you a lot about the state of someone's health, absolutely. But if you just look at his demeanor, the way that he speaks, the things that he says, the way he says them and stuff, it didn't come across as someone who was able to logically connect X and Y and get to Z at all. It was just there was a lot of cog fog there, I think, you know, in my humble opinion. And you know, so I think it's a clear sign that his mental capacity is starting to diminish, you know, as a function of his ridiculous diet, really, and his ridiculous ideology. Now, a lot of people have sort of accused me of being quite arrogant online and stuff, and I'd be the first to put my hand up and say, yep, I have. In a lot of my videos, presented myself that way. Yeah, just maybe a little bit, yeah. But, you know, I've repeatedly said, you know, I am actually doing that on purpose. I'm doing it with malice of forethought. I am playing a role here. It is a bit clickbaity, for which I make no apologies. We're all here to do what we're all here to do.
I hear you.
But also, if I'm a bit arrogant, you know, I'm coming from a standpoint of someone who actually has 3 advanced research degrees, a long list of publications in the peer-reviewed literature, several peer-reviewed book chapters. I've undertaken a number of multi-million-dollar external consultancies with major organizations. You know, I'm a currently publishing scientist. My most recent publication was as recently as November last year. I'm involved in the process. I've been a peer reviewer. I've sat on the editorial boards of several different journals. So if anybody is in a position to be a bit arrogant about what he knows about science, it's someone in my position. It's not someone like fucking hench herbivore who has done a 150-pound certificate over several weeks online at some point, you know?
Well, there needs to be some opposition. You know,
Yeah.
some people need to speak out and let people know that there is opposition out there. I mean, I've talked about just when you would be shocked at how many low carb, high fat books had been written over the last 100 years that you've never heard of. You would think everybody was a vegetarian or wanted to be a vegetarian, or we were supposed to eat a bunch of grains and seed oils. And there, all along, there's been voices of dissent that have been published. But of course, we could get publication bias, and the wrong information infiltrates society and is propagated over and over again. And so there needs to, people, you know, need to speak up like you did. People need to have the same sort of, bring the same sort of gravity to the conversation. If that's some amusing and, you know, slightly confrontational language, then you know, so be it. I mean, because it has to be equaled.
Yeah. So if people are saying, you know, I'm arrogant and I use appeal to authority, well, yes, I am slightly arrogant because I have a lot of knowledge and experience, and I appeal to my own authority because I fucking have some. You know, I actually have a CV that backs up what I'm talking about. Whereas you've got guys like, as I say, like Paul, who come online and tell us the answer to getting our omega-3s is to gob spoonfuls of algae. or gob back some flax seeds, and that'll do it for us. Yeah,
I'm a little suspicious that we didn't evolve to eat algae, but
yeah, maybe we evolved as algae, but fuck. Anyway,
like flax seeds, they're a great source of estrogen. I mean,
yeah. So if you want the man tits like Paul's starting to develop, go ahead. You know.
Yeah.
I say that flippantly. I understand that there's no evidence that estrogenics like soy actually do cause gynecomastia. I know that, people. Before you write into Tom's channel and say, oh, he's saying things that are wrong. I'm just being flippant. It's called humor, people. Get with the program.
Yeah, well, they've demonstrated that it happens with the xenoestrogens in plastics. So I don't think it's much of a stretch to think that sources like soy and flaxseed can create the same problem, especially in their high enough doses, you know.
Agreed. Yeah, we just need the evidence of that to be a bit firmer before we can say that that's definitely the case. I'd sooner avoid the risk altogether myself, given that there is absolutely no nutritional indication for soy or soy-based products at all, given that they're a plant and stuff, and we don't need to eat any plants at all.
Right. Yeah, you could just make linoleum out of the flax seeds.
You could. That'd be good. Yeah. Or you could just flush them straight down the toilet and cut out the middleman.
There's always that.
Cool. All right.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, when I get a chance, I'll send you that body scan. You could have a
please do.
Good laugh at my fetid dingo kidney on the right side.
You fed a dingo's kidneys. Yep. Good. Yeah. Tom and I had an ongoing joke about fetid dingo's kidneys because I said it once and he thought it was pretty funny. So
I can't let it go.
No. Yeah. Obsessive compulsive disorder.
Yeah, I was trying to give your girlfriend a hard time in that chat about the Gummelos cheese, the old cheese, because I've been trying to find it. It's disappeared in North America. Right. It's originally from Scandinavia, so.
Oh, right. Okay.
I was hoping I'd shake a little loose.
Good luck trying to give Pim a hard time. She'll give it back as good as she cops it. I can tell you, anyone that's seen any of our live streams together will understand what I'm talking about there. You have to get up pretty early in the morning to get one over Pimbalina pants. I can tell you that for nothing.
Well, this Gummelos cheese is supposedly the superfood that the Vikings used on their long sea voyages. So
right, okay, and again, if the boat sprung a leak, they could probably just poke some down into the caulking there and say, "There you go, that'll gum it up, so it can keep floating."
Oh yeah, everything on the ship ought to have more than one use, right?
Absolutely. Oh God. Oh well. So, what other topics have we got for today?
Gosh, I didn't. That's all I brought, man.
That's what I brought too.
Coronary heart disease. Oh, you want to talk a little bit about the process of how the plaques form, and maybe you could tell us a little about the glycocalyx and the endothelial cells and the particles, the inflammation, the macrophages, the foam cells, and yada yada yada.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we can cover a bit of that sort of quite in quite a cursory way, I guess, as a sort of way to summarize and finish off today's chat. But I mean, basically, a lot of people don't necessarily have a picture in their mind of what the inside of arteries look like, I guess, under a microscope, how they really are. They maybe have an idea that the cells that line your arteries are sort of smooth cells, and it's like a slick, like the inside of a hose or something like that. Not really, boys and girls. It's like, while there is a cell membrane, which is kind of a smooth thing, if you like, there are all these hair-like structures that come off it that all have different, think of them like antennas, if you like, that will receive different messages, lock onto different molecular things that go past in the blood, and that communicates to the cell. And there's this really complex thing going on here. It's like a forest of fluffy, wuzzy things going on there. And given that, like as I was saying before, that 50% of the cell membrane of every cell in your body by weight is actually molecular cholesterol, one of the things that's really important is that on the microcalyx are these hooks that are designed to grab onto an ApoB100, for example, a protein. The ApoB100 protein is the one which is associated with, and is the one that actually determines that a lipoprotein is in the class called LDL, low density lipoprotein. So what you've got is like a hook and eye mechanism. There's an eye, if you like, on the ApoB protein. There's a hook on the microcalyx growing on the epithelial cell. The cholesterol goes past, it gets hooked, and it gets bound up there, sort of chemically, if you like. And then the LDL can release its cargo of cholesterol into the cell for use for all the various different processes that cholesterol is very useful for in cells. Then obviously the design is, once that is cholesterol is released and the the lipoprotein is exhausted, the hook is released, and the remnant protein goes back to the liver for refilling and reprocessing. Usually it's broken down and the protein is completely, resynthesized from amino acids again. The issue is when the ApoB protein becomes chemically altered, chemically deranged, its physical structure changes as a function of, for example, there are a couple of really common ways that an ApoB protein can be changed from how it was when it was originally synthesized by the body. One of the things that will change an ApoB protein is glucose. Okay, so if your blood glucose is elevated, there is a high probability that an ApoB protein floating in that same blood will come into contact with more glucose at a higher concentration, and that glucose will chemically alter the structure of that protein. The other way that you can alter an ApoB protein quite easily is by oxidizing it, which is something that you are very, very likely to experience if you have systemic inflammation. Because when you have systemic inflammation, one of the things that's elevated in your blood are oxidants, free radicals, things that will cause things to be oxidatively deranged, like ApoB 100 protein. When your microcalyx hooks an ApoB protein that is not native, what also happens is your immune system goes, now, just by way of doing a quick check on this ApoB protein, we have noticed that it's not actually our native ApoB protein. This is not the one we synthesized a few weeks ago or a few minutes ago or whenever it was. As a result of that, we suspect that this might potentially be an invading pathogen because it's not our native self-generated protein. So the instruction to the microcalyx is not to release that ApoB protein. We want to lock it up right where it is so that it can't do any further damage somewhere else in the body. And then we're going to send some immune cells over there to spew more oxidants like peroxide all over it to destroy it and kill it. And then the inflammation should resolve because the human has evolved to be in electrical contact with the earth, and that then neutralizes the peroxide and stuff and neutralizes the inflammatory pathway, and everybody's happy and we all move on with our lives. Except we now live lifestyles where we insulate ourselves from the earth electrically 98% of the time, 99% of the time, so the inflammation never resolves properly. We eat a diet which is really, really high in complex carbohydrates because we've been avoiding that nasty saturated fat, which is killing us. And in so doing, we elevate our blood glucose levels because we cause ourselves to be insulin resistant. That has a double whammy effect because high insulin resistance also is associated directly and causally with systemic inflammation, i.e. more free radicals, more oxidation, more damage to ApoB 100 proteins. We have a runaway train situation, Tom, basically is what's going on. That's called heart disease. More macrophages come in, spew more peroxide all over the situation, chronic inflammation sets in. Then we put scar tissue over that because it's just not healing. And then that scar tissue becomes calcified with calcium deposits, and that's what shows up on your CAC score. And that's how we know that the disease process is progressing to a certain level. So that's kind of the process of atherosclerosis. Basically, it occurs because of oxidants and sugar, largely.
Just to fluff it out for people who aren't quite familiar, glucose is what we typically describe as blood sugar.
Yeah.
When it's in the higher the levels, the more glycation you get, and glycation is essentially one of the forms of damage that proteins can be subjected to. And LDL is a type of protein, and it could become damaged, and this can contribute to the building of atherosclerosis in the arteries. And then I'm pretty sure I recently read a study that pointed to the concept that sugars like fructose, which is fruit sugar, which we don't directly use as a fuel, but it is somewhere on the order of 20 times more potent when it comes to glycating proteins than, say, glucose.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Correct.
fruit's not necessarily a friendly food.
Fruit is absolutely, definitely not your friend. You are not a fruitarian. You are not evolutionarily designed to eat fruit. You should not eat fruit. There you go.
And they might have a little bit of a different opinion over there at Hinge Herbivore, right?
I think they do. They do. But then they think the way to get ALA is to gob spoonfuls of algae. Nom, nom, nom. I tell you what, I think Paul is definitely gobbing spoonfuls of something, and it's not algae.
Yeah, can you imagine a world where you got to supplement with algae to stay alive? Whew.
Yeah. Crazy stuff, isn't it? Crazy.
Right.
Cool.
Thank you for that nice little explanation there.
No, not at all. It's a pleasure.
I know a few people who have had serious heart disease, have had bypasses, and are living with this every day, and they don't have the foggiest idea what's going on in their bodies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, they're also being fed dangerous, false misinformation by misguided individuals who have had their knowledge indoctrinated into their heads by people with a vested financial interest in pushing a certain idea, which is not remotely supported by science. And that's the sad thing about society these days. It's every person for him, herself. And it behooves you, it is your responsibility to educate yourself about what the science really is telling us. And, I think great places to start that process of de-brainwashing, disindoctrinating, and re-educating yourself. Places like Tom's channel. Tom's channel was a great resource in terms of the information. My channel's not too bad either. If you want to, have a look around some of my stuff, I've got about 200 videos at this point on all sorts of different topics. Obviously, heart disease, atherosclerosis, all that kind of stuff is a hot topic for me.
You're quite prolific.
And also, my other sort of prolific area is calling people an idiot who are an idiot, because there are so many of them. And because it gets clicks, so let's be honest. And also,
kind of surprised they don't have an idiot score.
Yeah, everyone should have an idiot score. Maybe that's I'll install one on my channel. This week's idiot score is that'll be quite good. But also, I have a Patreon channel which you can support me on, and also a Subscribe Star for those of you who have your noses out of joint with Patreon. They're kind of parallel offerings, so you can do either or. Also, there's a link on my channel there on basically all my videos where you can go directly to PayPal and support me there if you want to. Obviously, the making of these videos, the time spent on doing so, all of that does cost money. We do all have mortgages to pay and mouths to feed and that kind of stuff. So your support is appreciated. As I say, I want to fully endorse what Tom's doing. Tom's a great character with his head in the right place. He's doing all the right things and getting his advice from the right place. So also, people should, those of you that might be watching this video at a later stage on my channel, if you're not subscribed to Tom's channel, get over there, get it done.
Well, I appreciate it. Make sure you send me all your links so I could put them in the show notes there.
No worries, I'll do that for you. And other than that, we'll run away. I've got my next client in a few minutes.
All right.
Because the other thing I do, obviously, is I offer hour time slots out on you can access that through my Patreon channel for those that want to consult with me on any given topic around nutrition, health, exercise, performance and physiology, and all those kind of things, preparation for sporting events or whatever it is, all areas of expertise that I can help you with. You just sign up to my Patreon channel there at the $50 a month level, and that gets you access to my electronic calendar. You book yourself in for an hour time slot. I appear on Skype at the appointed time, as do you, and we can talk about pretty much anything you want to there. So that's the other way to get hold of me if you want to. Also, if you just want to send me an email, you can find my email on my channel. It's on the About tab there. It's not a secret. Go ahead and send me an email if you want.
Yeah, that's one of the excellent things about the modern age. People can access somebody like yourself with a lot of expertise from anywhere in the world at a very reasonable rate.
You bet.
The kind of help that nobody would have got 5 or 10 years ago.
Yeah, and I'm absolutely offering myself out at the rate I currently do. I'm crazy. I'm killing myself here doing it, boys and girls. So take advantage of it while you can, because it will go up. I promise you. All right.
Well, most excellent. I really appreciate you taking the time, Bart.
Not at all. Thank you very much for having me on again. As I say, it's always a pleasure talking to you, Tom. And you're one of the people that
I always enjoy talking to you, Bart.
Likewise. All right, and we'll catch you around again really soon.
All right, buddy. Thanks again.
Thank you. See you later.